The perfect setup is the most expensive lie in trading. It's not just costing you money, it's costing you time, energy, and your damn sanity. And I know that sounds dramatic, but I'm telling you right now, it's the lie that keeps more traders broke than anything else. I used to believe in it too. I had my so called holy grail setup, the one I thought was going to change everything. Everything lined up: technicals, fundamentals, market sentiment, even the damn moon phases, if you ask me. I had every confirmation I could possibly want. I sized up. I sat there watching the candles like I was about to witness history. And then it failed. Hard. Not just a little fake out. It ripped against me like it was personally offended I even placed the trade. I stared at the screen in disbelief, thinking, how? This was perfect. It had to work. But the market doesn't give a shit about what you think has to work. That was the day I realized something. The perfect setup isn't just a fantasy. It's a trap. It's the sugar-coated poison that makes you ignore risk, over-leverage, and forget the one thing that actually matters in trading: probabilities, not certainties. And today, we're pulling the curtain back on that myth. I'm going to give you the truths most traders never hear. Truths the mentors and social media gurus don't want to tell you. Because selling you the dream of the perfect setup is way more profitable for them than telling you the truth. Let's get real. The perfect setup is a marketing tool. Plain and simple. Every course ad, every secret strategy video, every backtest screenshot with a perfect win rate, they're all selling you that high. They want you hooked on the belief that somewhere out there, there's this one magic combination of indicators or patterns that will make you unstoppable. And they never show you the losses, the drawdowns, the weeks of chop that make you question your life choices. You've seen it. Those highlight reel screenshots, crisp charts with clean entries and exits, profits in the thousands, perfect green lines that make it look like the market was just begging to hand over money. And you compare that to your own screen. Messy charts, conflicting signals, trades that look beautiful until you click the button and then fall apart instantly. You start thinking, what's wrong with me? Why can't I find trades like that? I'll tell you what's wrong. You're comparing your raw footage to someone else's highlight reel. You're seeing the filtered, curated version of trading designed to make you feel inadequate, so you'll buy whatever they're selling. And the crazy part? Half the time, those perfect setups weren't even traded live. They were cherry-picked after the fact. That's not trading. That's marketing. I remember early on, I saw this trader online posting screenshot after screenshot of flawless setups. I studied them like they were sacred texts, tried to copy every detail. And when I finally got my chart to match one of theirs, I thought I was about to kill it. Instead, the market laughed in my face, stopped me out in minutes. I later found out that guy only posted winning trades and left out all the losers. And I'd been worshiping a half-truth. Here's the brutal reality. There is no perfect setup. There's only a setup with a probability attached to it. You can have all your ducks in a row and still get smacked. You can have a messy, imperfect entry and still make money if you manage it right. The perfection fantasy makes you hesitate on good trades because they don't look right. And it makes you overcommit on bad trades because they look perfect. Both will kill your account. So why do you keep chasing it? Because it feels safe. It feels like if you can just find this magic bullet, you won't have to deal with the discomfort of losing. And that's the lie. Losses aren't a bug in the system. They're the rent you pay to play this game. The sooner you accept that, the sooner you stop hunting unicorns and start trading like a grown-up. Pause for a second and think about your last so-called perfect trade. Did you size up more than usual? Did you feel extra confident, like you couldn't lose? And when it went against you, did that loss sting more than usual? That's the cost of believing the myth. You know what real pros do? They take a setup they've tested, they execute it whether it looks perfect or not, and they manage risk exactly the same every time. They're not out here waiting for the planets to align. They know that edge comes from consistency, not perfection. The perfect setup is the crack cocaine of new traders. Gives you that dopamine rush when you think you found it, makes you feel invincible, and then leaves you broke and wondering what happened. I'm telling you right now, throw it out. Stop looking for the one chart pattern that will never fail. Start building a process that works over hundreds of trades, not one. And the next time you see someone online posting their picture perfect trade, ask yourself, where's the other half of the story? Where are the losing trades? Where's the chop, the false breakouts, the whipsaw candles that make you question your will to live? Because if they're not showing you that, they're not showing you trading. They're showing you marketing. When I finally ditched the perfect setup myth, my trading didn't suddenly become magical, but it became real. I stopped over leveraging on trades that couldn't lose. I stopped hesitating on trades that didn't check every aesthetic box but still had an edge. My results smoothed out. My stress went down. And most importantly, I stopped feeling like a failure every time reality didn't match the Instagram version of trading. Here's your takeaway. The perfect setup doesn't exist. The perfect process does. And the sooner you stop chasing the lie, the sooner you can start building something that actually makes money. You want a single line to burn into your brain? Here it is. Stop looking for the perfect trade. Start becoming the trader who can handle imperfect ones. Your brain is hardwired to crave perfection. Not because you're picky, not because you're some detail-obsessed genius, but because you're a human animal that evolved to survive in a dangerous world. Safety and predictability kept your ancestors alive. If something looked the same, felt the same, and behaved the same, it meant it wasn't going to kill you. That instinct is baked so deep into your wiring you can't shut it off. In trading, that wiring mutates into this toxic belief. If I just find the flawless setup, I'll be safe from losses. You think if you can spot that one pattern that always works, you can finally breathe. You won't have to deal with the chaos anymore. You'll be insulated from pain. And that's the trap, because the market isn't a jungle where the same rustle in the bushes always means the same predator. It's chaos disguised as order. And the moment you think you've mapped it, it changes shape. When I first started, I chased perfection like it was oxygen. I kept a journal with every microscopic detail you can imagine. The exact angle of trend lines, the time of day, the spread size to the decimal, how I felt that morning. Hell, I even wrote down what I ate for breakfast once, just in case it correlated with my performance. I thought if I could just track enough, I'd find the golden formula. I truly believed that if I logged enough data, I could eliminate losing trades entirely. And sure, for a while I felt like I was onto something. I'd find these patterns in my notes and get this rush like I'd cracked the code. Then I'd put it to the test in the market, and boom. The market ripped right through my perfect conditions without even blinking. That's when I realized I wasn't building certainty. I was building an illusion. I was trying to engineer a safe, predictable environment inside a place that thrives on chaos. You need to get this. Your brain wants safety. The market offers none, so stop trying to force it to. You can't make a lion into a house cat by measuring its stripes. And here's the cold, motivational slap you need. The market doesn't care about perfect. It doesn't even know what perfect means. Your setup, all your lines, your indicators, your clean little structure, it's invisible to the market. The only thing the market sees is orders, buy orders, sell orders, and those orders are driven by a mix of logic, fear, greed, algorithms, and outright stupidity. Your beautiful, technically flawless setup doesn't stop some whale from dumping a position that crushes your plan. I had a week once where my rules worked like magic. Monday to Friday, it was like the market was reading my playbook and playing along. Perfect entries, perfect exits, minimal drawdown. I was floating. And then Monday hit again. Same setup, same conditions, same everything, and I got obliterated. By Wednesday, I was clawing back from a hole. No warning, no sign, just a total collapse of the pattern. That's the difference between technical perfection and market reality. Technical perfection is about your side of the screen, your charts, your analysis, your comfort zone. Market reality is a storm where your perfect little paper boat doesn't mean shit when the wind shifts. And don't twist this into an excuse to be sloppy. I'm not saying stop refining your process. I'm saying stop worshiping it. Stop treating your rules like they have magical powers to bend the market. They don't. Your rules are there to give you structure, not to control price action. So here's the question you need to burn into your brain. Are you trading because you want to win, or are you trading because you want to feel safe? because those are not the same thing. If you want to feel safe, go buy a CD at the bank and collect your 2% a year. If you want to win, you'd better get comfortable with risk, uncertainty, and setups that don't work half the time. Perfection is a comfort blanket, and comfort blankets in trading are just ways of hiding from reality. You think you're refining your edge, but you're really just insulating your ego from the fact that you can do everything right and still lose. And until you swallow that pill, the market's going to keep punching you in the mouth every time you step up. Your job isn't to find perfect, it's to execute well in the middle of imperfection. The market will never be safe. It will never be predictable in the way your brain wants it to be. And that's fine, because the traders who thrive aren't the ones who find the flawless setup. They're the ones who show up knowing the setup might fail and still pull the trigger with discipline. So stop babying your brain with the lie of perfection. Respect the chaos, play the probabilities, and remember this: the market doesn't reward perfection. It rewards those who can stay in the game when perfect falls apart. Perfectionism feels safe, but it's a trap with teeth. It seduces you into thinking you've got control. You tell yourself, I've nailed every detail. There's no way this fails. That's the false security trap. It's a confidence high that isn't earned, it's manufactured. And the problem with manufactured confidence is it doesn't survive contact with reality. Here's how it works. You refine a setup until it looks bulletproof. You smooth every rough edge. You tweak the indicators, adjust the stops, filter out anything that might cause a losing trade. You convince yourself you've eliminated risk. And because your brain loves feeling safe, you start leaning harder into that belief. But all you've really done is build a glass house in a hailstorm. I've seen traders, and I've been one of them, get so wrapped up in this illusion that they stop respecting the market. They forget that price action isn't obligated to follow their backtest. They start thinking losses are a thing of the past, and that's exactly when the market blindsides them. Not just with a small loss, but with the kind of ugly, confidence-shattering hit that makes you question everything. Over-optimization is the disease here. You take a strategy that might have been decent in raw form, then polish it so hard it only works in one narrow, perfect set of conditions. And guess what? Real markets don't deliver perfect conditions. What works in backtesting often falls apart in live trading because backtesting is sterile. No slippage, no spread widening in the middle of your entry, no panic from real money on the line. I had a strategy once that I spent months refining. I was obsessed. Every losing trade in the backtest, I'd go in and figure out how to fix it. I added filters, removed signals, adjusted parameters. By the end, my backtest equity curve looked like a staircase to heaven. It was smooth, clean, unreal. Then I took it live. Within 2 weeks, I was bleeding. The first few trades looked fine, then the market shifted slightly. Nothing dramatic, just enough to make my perfect filters choke. Suddenly, I was missing winners and catching losers. That's when it hit me. I hadn't built a robust strategy. I'd built a museum piece, something so delicate it couldn't handle the real world. Over-optimization turns you into a fragile trader. You become dependent on conditions staying ideal, and the second they don't, you're naked in a storm. Now, let's talk about the other side of perfectionism, the one that doesn't blow up your account but quietly starves it: the waiting game. Analysis paralysis, that endless loop where you're staring at the charts, waiting for the absolute flawless alignment of every single one of your rules before you take a trade. You think you're being disciplined, but really you're hiding. You're scared of being wrong, so you invent this imaginary perfect signal that almost never happens. And when it does, half the time it's already over by the time you notice. I've been there. I remember a setup that was almost perfect. The price was in the zone, the volume looked right, but one of my indicators wasn't quite where I wanted it. So I passed. I told myself, I'll wait for the cleaner one. That trade took off like a rocket without me. It hit my original profit target in hours. I sat there staring at the chart, sick to my stomach, knowing the only reason I wasn't in it was because I needed my ego's permission slip to pull the trigger. And here's the cruel part. Missing that trade didn't just cost me the profit. It made me gun-shy for the next one. I was so pissed at myself that I overanalyzed everything for the rest of the week, waiting for another perfect moment that never came. Perfection leads to inaction because it gives you an excuse not to risk anything. You tell yourself you're being patient, but patience without execution is just cowardice in a fancy coat. The market rewards action, not reckless, blind action, but decisive, informed action. The trader who takes 10 solid trades, even if a few aren't perfect, will crush the trader who takes 2 perfect ones and sits out the rest. So let me be blunt. You need to kill this fantasy that you can trade without discomfort. If you're waiting for the market to make you feel safe before you act, you're going to die of old age staring at your charts. Every trade you take will have something wrong with it. A wick you don't like, a level that's a little too close, news coming up in an hour. Get used to it. Pause for a second and think about your last missed trade. Not the one you avoided because it was pure garbage, but the one you passed on because it wasn't perfect. How much would it have made you? Now ask yourself this. Would that money be in your account right now if you weren't busy polishing your halo of perfection? Perfectionism will rob you both ways. It'll give you false confidence when you think you've cracked the code, then gut punch you when reality hits. Or it'll keep you sitting on your hands while the opportunities you actually needed sail by without you. The market doesn't pay you for being perfect. It pays you for being effective. And being effective means you take trades that fit your plan, even if they aren't wrapped in gold foil. It means you accept that some will lose and you execute anyway. The truth is brutal. Perfection is comfort, and comfort kills in this game. Stop worshiping it. Stop hiding behind it. Start pulling the trigger when the trade is good enough, not perfect. Because good enough, executed with consistency, will beat your flawless but rare setups every single time. You know what happens when you get obsessed with finding the perfect trade? You start seeing it everywhere. You bend reality to fit your fantasy. That half-baked pattern? Suddenly it's textbook. That sloppy breakout? Oh, it's definitely your setup. You just adjusted the criteria a little. You're not spotting perfection anymore. You're manufacturing it in your head because you're desperate to trade. And when you do that, the market punishes you the way it always does, by showing you in real time just how wrong you were. I've done it. I've stared at a chart and argued with myself until my own nonsense sounded logical. I'd convinced myself the stars had aligned, that it was my A-plus play. Then, 5 minutes after I hit buy, I'd be watching a red candle slice through my stop. It wasn't bad luck. It was me lying to myself. I'd overfit the pattern in my mind, just like traders overfit a backtest, forcing bad data to fit a pretty curve. It's the same disease, bending the rules until they don't even resemble the original rules anymore. Pattern overfitting is seductive because it lets you believe you're being disciplined. You can tell yourself, no, I'm still following my system. I'm just adapting. But you're not adapting. You're diluting. Every time you loosen your standards just to scratch the itch of taking a trade, you make your setup less sharp. And you know what happens when a blade gets dull? It doesn't cut. Here's the kicker. You rarely see it in the moment. You only admit it later, after the loss, when you review and say, yeah, that wasn't really my setup. But by then, it's too late. You've already paid tuition to the market in the form of a loss. So why do you fall into this trap? It's the addiction to certainty. You're hooked on the rush of, I found it. You get a dopamine hit every time you think you've discovered a flawless opportunity. That's why backtesting can be dangerous for certain traders. Those backtest wins feel like proof of genius. You scroll through historical charts, spot your setup, watch it win over and over, and your brain lights up like you've just won the lottery. But here's the problem. That high makes you forget one thing. The market doesn't care about your backtest. Live trading is messy, unpredictable, and full of variables you can't simulate. Yet you keep chasing that same eureka feeling, thinking the next setup you discover will be the holy grail. I've seen traders spend weeks crafting a new pattern, tweaking the parameters until it wins on paper, only to watch it implode in live conditions. And what happens after it fails? They don't quit the habit. They just start hunting for the next one. It's a vicious cycle. That high you get when you think you've cracked the code is the same high gamblers feel when they think they've found a system to beat the casino. But deep down, you know how that story ends. The house always wins. The market isn't your lab rat. It won't behave just because your spreadsheet says it should. Every time you chase the rush of certainty, you set yourself up for the crash that follows. If you want to break that cycle, you have to kill the craving for perfect and get addicted to execution instead. Execution is boring. Execution doesn't light up your brain with fireworks. But it's the only addiction in trading that actually pays over time. So the next time you catch yourself bending the rules, stop. Ask yourself, am I truly seeing my setup, or am I desperate to see my setup? If you can't answer that honestly, close the chart and walk away. The trade you don't take can save you more money than the perfect trade you force. And here's the ugly truth. Your need for perfection isn't about winning more. It's about avoiding the feeling of being stupid. You want trades so good they guarantee you won't lose, so you won't have to face the ego bruise of being wrong. But until you kill that need, you'll keep overtrading, overfitting, and overdosing on fake certainty until the market drains you dry. Execution over excitement. Truth over dopamine. That's the only way out. You need to burn this into your head. Trading is probability, not perfection. If that doesn't sink in, you're already in trouble. If you still believe you can pick only the winners, you're living in a fantasy. The market isn't a slot machine that pays out when you find the magic lever. It's a game of edges, and edges don't guarantee anything in the short term. Here's the truth. Even the best setups lose. Not because you read the chart wrong. Not because you didn't believe hard enough. They lose because probability is a cruel mistress. You can have a setup that wins 70% of the time, and that still means 3 out of 10 trades will smack you in the face. That's normal. That's baked into the math. If you can't handle that, you're in the wrong game. Win rate isn't the full story. You can have a 90% win rate and still blow up your account if your losers are huge and your winners are tiny. You can also win less than half the time and still be wildly profitable if your average win crushes your average loss. That's expectancy, the number that really matters. It's the difference between I hope this trade works and I know my plan will make money over 100 trades. I once showed 2 traders the exact same chart pattern, side by side. Same setup, same time frame, same rules. One trade ended in profit, the other in a stop out. Identical entries, opposite results. And the looks on their faces were priceless, like the market had betrayed them. No, that's just reality. You can execute perfectly and still lose. That's why you stop worshiping any single trade. When you chase perfection, you set yourself up to be emotionally gutted every time a perfect setup fails. And it will fail. No amount of confirmation will save you from variance. If you can't accept that, you'll keep tinkering with your system forever, searching for a unicorn that doesn't exist, and in the process, you'll destroy the very edge you had. So flip the script. Stop asking, was that setup perfect? And start asking, did I execute my plan perfectly? That's the pivot that will save both your sanity and your account. When I stopped obsessing over making my setup bulletproof and started obsessing over flawless execution, everything changed. I stopped tweaking entry rules after every loss. I stopped adding filters just to avoid pain. Instead, I focused on risk, sizing, and following my process trade after trade, no matter how it felt. And here's the crazy thing. My results became more consistent. Not because my win rate went up, but because my losers stayed small and my winners stacked cleanly over time. That's the paradox you have to live with. Consistency comes from process, not perfection. I know a trader who used to rewrite his rules every month, thinking he was improving his system. In reality, he was just curve fitting to last month's market. When he finally locked in his rules and swore not to change them for 6 months, his performance skyrocketed. Why? Because he gave probability time to play out instead of bailing after every losing streak. You need to understand, the market rewards discipline, not desperation. If you're constantly chasing the next perfect tweak, you're telling the market you can be baited by randomness. And randomness will eat you alive. So here's your gut check. If I stripped your chart of all your indicators and filters and told you to trade one clean setup with perfect execution for the next 100 trades, could you do it? Or would you crack after the first 3 losses and start tinkering again? That's the dividing line between amateurs and professionals. Amateurs want every trade to win. Professionals want their edge to work over time. You're not going to find the perfect setup. Stop pretending. The only thing you can perfect is yourself, your discipline, your risk control, your consistency. That's where the money is. Everything else is just noise. The moment you truly accept that, you stop caring about being right on this trade or the next. You care about being profitable after 100. That's when trading stops being a stressful grind and starts becoming a game you can actually win. If you want to be that trader, drop the obsession with perfection and get addicted to execution. Trade your plan. Take the hit when it comes. Move to the next one. Let the probabilities do their job. That's how you break free. That's how you win. If you want to actually survive in this game, you need an anti-perfection trading system. A plan that doesn't break the moment reality, doesn't match your fantasy. A plan that works not because it's flawless, but because it's built to take punches and keep standing. The first pillar is risk management. Not the sexy stuff. Not this indicator says buy. I mean the cold math of survival. How much can you lose before you're out of the game? How much will you risk on a single trade? And no, I'll just cut it if it looks bad is not a risk plan. That's you lying to yourself. Risk management is deciding before you click the button exactly where you're wrong and exactly how much you'll lose when you're wrong. And then, when you are wrong, because you will be, you take the hit like a pro and move on. The second pillar is probability awareness. You're not a sniper taking one perfect shot a year. You're a casino. You set the rules of your game, and you let people, the market, play as often as they want. Sometimes the house loses, sometimes it wins big. But the house always wins over time because it sticks to the math. If you can't think in probabilities, you're going to get wrecked by randomness. One win will make you cocky. One loss will make you doubt everything. That's what destroys traders. The third pillar is emotional discipline. This is the part nobody wants to work on, because it's not as fun as adding a new moving average. Emotional discipline is noticing the rush of greed when a trade goes green and not sizing up recklessly on the next one. It's noticing the fear after 3 losses and still taking the next setup exactly as planned. If you can't manage your own brain, your system is irrelevant. Let me give you my own imperfect but profitable plan. It's boring, it's simple, and it works. I have one core setup. I traded on a handful of instruments. I know the win rate. I know the average loss. I know the average win. I size small enough to survive losing streaks. I track every trade, good or bad. And the magic? It's not perfect. Some weeks it looks like garbage. But because I follow it relentlessly, it makes money over months and years. That's what matters. Here's the thing. You can have the best rules in the world, but the market doesn't care. What matters is how you execute when the setup looks ugly, when volatility is weird, when the news drops out of nowhere. If your plan only works on sunny days, it's trash. Build it to take the storm. And speaking of storms, let's talk about flexibility. If you think you've found the perfect setup, congratulations, it has an expiration date. All setups decay, all edges erode. The market shifts, volatility dries up or explodes, trends stop trending, patterns stop playing out the way they used to. If you cling to perfect, you're going down with the ship. Flexibility is the ability to adapt without panic. You don't reinvent your system every week. That's overreaction. But you do monitor your edge. You do notice when your setup isn't producing like it used to. And you have the skill to tweak it without breaking its core. I'll give you an example. A few years ago, I had a setup that worked beautifully in a trending environment. It printed money when the market was moving. But then volatility collapsed. Same entries, same logic, and suddenly it was Chop City. My equity curve started bleeding. Now, most traders in that situation either double down and say, no, it'll come back, or they throw the whole thing out and chase something shiny. I did neither. I looked at the data. I saw that my risk to reward was getting crushed in the chop, so I adjusted. I shortened my targets, tightened my stops, and traded smaller size until volatility returned. The setup survived because I didn't marry it. That's what you have to learn. You don't fall in love with a method. You marry the principles, risk control, probability thinking, emotional discipline, and you date the setups. When one stops performing, you fix it or you replace it. No attachment, no ego. If you want a real edge in this business, you build something that's sturdy enough to keep you alive when it's underperforming and flexible enough to change when the market changes. That's the anti perfection mindset in action. Not just technical, not just psychological, both working together. You're not aiming for the perfect system. You're aiming for the last system you'll ever need to keep making money through the chaos. The sooner you accept that, the sooner you stop being the mark and start being the